Hello, my name is Henry Silverman, and today I'd like to talk about human rights. Before doing so, I'd like to talk about the nature of rights. When we talk about a right, we are referring to somebody, X, has a right to either do something or to have something, Z. Now, to say that someone has a right, that entails or implies an obligation on another person, Y. And what is the nature of that obligation? Well, X rights entails that some party Y has an obligation either not to interfere with X in order for X to do something, or to provide X with this something Z. Based on the obligation, we have two types of rights. One is negative rights, a right to be free from some action taken by others. This is usually the role of civil, political, and legal rights, essentially to protect individuals from societal intrusions. Essentially, a negative right is a right not to be interfered with. In contrast, we have positive rights. A right to be provided with a particular good or service by others, for example, healthcare, or clothing, or money. And this is the role of social, economic, and cultural rights. A negative right is very easy for a duty holder to discharge because essentially all that person has to do is not to interfere with somebody else's right for freedom of the speech or freedom to vote. All you have to do is not to interfere. However, a positive right, because it entails to provide something with a particular good to somebody else, is very much harder to discharge because you actually have to do something for somebody as opposed to not interfering. Human rights are traditionally categorized in the following types: civil rights and political rights, which we said before are negative rights, against rights of non-interference, whereas social rights, cultural rights, and economic rights are positive rights because you have to provide something to somebody. This slide shows the specification of civil rights, political rights. And this slide shows the economic, social rights, and cultural rights. Now, there are many different types of rights. Legal rights comes from laws. Institutional rights come from policies of the institutions. Professional rights come from the professional societies. And student rights come from charters of the graduate school. A very important issue is what grounds human rights? Well, what serves as the foundation for human rights? Well, there are several contenders. One, human rights are rights that one possesses simply by virtue of being human. The Declaration of Independence says that these rights are self-evident. Then we have the French Declaration of the Rights of Man. Men are born and remain free and equal in rights. Rights could come from a concept of natural law, rights as commanded by God, or rights according to rules that would be fashioned due to a hypothetical contract to which the members of any society would agree unanimously. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 had a list of 29 rights. One of these rights was that everyone should have an adequate standard of living, adequate for the health of the family. And another right, Article 28, is that everyone should have a right to have an international order that's not coercive. We'll talk more about this in our next video. Now, Jeremy Bentham in 1791, one of the first proponents of utilitarian, thought that human rights were nonsense upon stilts. He thought that only from real law comes real rights, but from imaginary laws, from the law of nature, can only come imaginary rights. The French Declaration of the Rights of Man is simple nonsense, rhetorical nonsense, nonsense upon stilts. A right had to have a legal basis or be a child of law. Essentially, he was proposing that the only rights that people have are those that are fashioned by society in the realm of law. In a way, Jeremy Bentham was onto something because the popularity of rights language has led to a situation in which everyone is claiming a right, but it kind of makes somewhat of a bit of nonsense when what's the point of claiming a right when, in order to secure those rights, someone has to do something for you, especially with positive rights. Again, going back to the nature of rights, in order to have a right, that implies an obligation on somebody else. And again, it's much easier for someone to claim a negative right, because that just merely means that somebody doesn't have to interfere with you securing your right to speech, for example. However, if you're talking about positive rights, then now you're asking a lot from the other party to provide you with something. So I hope this serves as an introduction to the nature of rights. Thank you very much.